Nuvei, a payments processing company, made its debut on the TSX last week on September 17th. Shares were originally priced at $26, but within the first hour of trading, they went all the way up to $44 per share. So this caught my attention, and that's why we're going to be looking at Nuvei stock today. There was some news circulating around about Nuvei stock being only available to institutional investors. However, some of my subscribers on this channel who asked me to do the review on Nuvei mentioned that they were able to buy Nuvei stock last week. And same with myself, I was able to log on to QUESTRADE and I could see the shares there available for purchase. Unfortunately though, for those of you guys who are WealthSimple Trade, it's not yet available for you there. So I heard that Nuvei stock will actually be available on September 22nd for all retail investors. So hopefully it shows up on WealthSimple Trade, but I'll keep you posted in the comments down below. Welcome back to the Fire Grind. My name is Daniel, and on this channel, we talk about stock market investing and personal finance. In today's video, as I mentioned, we'll be taking a deeper dive into Nuvei stock. So a few things that I'm going to cover here about Nuvei stock is that we're going to go over some of the key highlights about the company. Then we're going to go into what makes this company so special compared to other payments processing companies. Then we're going to go into how revenue is generated as well as some of their largest customers. And finally, we're going to do a showdown between Lightspeed, Nuvei, and maybe Shopify if I have that data available for you. But hold up, there's one last section that we're going to go over, which could be the kicker for whether you invest in Nuvei or not. The last section here that we're going to talk about is a review on the company by third-party reviewers as well as customers. So starting off, some quick facts about Nuvei. First of all, the purpose of the company that they've outlined is that they're making the world a local marketplace. And how they're accomplishing this mission is that they have a global presence. They're present in America, Latin America, Asia Pacific, as well as Europe. And their platform supports just shy of 150 currencies. The company has been in operation for 17 years, and it's not the new kid on the block. In the latest quarter, the company actually turned a profit for the first time. This is very rare for medium cap companies, let alone even large cap tech stocks, to turn a profit so quickly. Take a look at Shopify and Lightspeed. Shopify is barely profitable and Lightspeed is still not yet profitable. Nuvei services customers from various different industries, which ultimately reduces risk. For example, like COVID, a lot of restaurants shut down, and if they only service restaurants, their revenue streams would have dried up very quickly. However, they've diversified their customer segments such that if one of their customer segments is failing due to some sort of global economic trends, they're able to still float the company with the rest of their customers. And the last quick fact that I have for you guys here is this is the largest tech IPO that the TSX has ever seen. So yes, this was larger than Shopify, it was larger than Lightspeed, larger than Docebo, and every single other tech company that I've talked about on this channel. So everything looks great on the surface of it. They're the largest IPO, they're very diversified, and they're in the payment space, which is just growing rapidly. So go ahead, invest right now, but wait. I still have a couple red flags later on that you should consider before investing in Nuvei. But before we dive into some of the cons, we should understand the business on a broader scale. So what do they do and how are they unique? So when I read through their prospective filing, Nuvei at the core is differentiated from all their competitors based on their native commerce platform. And their technology really focuses on the payment space. The payment process is usually made up of multiple steps and includes third-party vendors which help to verify the payments are secure and safe. However, Nuvei's platform actually takes out a lot of the third-party vendors here, and their platform actually does these tasks themselves. And this matters to both Nuvei as a company as well as their customers. For Nuvei, the fact that they took out a bunch of third-party services and everything's in-house, there's less moving gears to the whole payments process. So if a third-party vendor goes down, then the whole payments process could be jeopardized. But now there's less steps to the process, which reduces the risk of payments being denied. On top of that, the company is able to cut out some of the costs that they typically see for paying third-party vendors to be part of the process, and they can either pocket those profits or pass on savings to customers. For customers, first of all, they could be at the receiving end of savings, which Nuvei passes on, as well as Nuvei is able to provide customers with deeper insights when a payment is either accepted or declined. The fact that there's more transparency for each transaction will generate trust between the customer and Nuvei. Up on the screen right now, you can see the traditional payments process. And down below that, you can see Nuvei's process and how they've taken some parts and integrated it into their own system. And now here's a more detailed view, and I'll walk you through quickly how each step works. So step 1, a customer provides payment details, so they either swipe their credit card or the debit card. Then the payment and payer details are processed online by Nuvei's gateway and Nuvei Risk Management Engine. Following the acceptance by Nuvei's Risk Management Engine system, Nuvei Gateway encrypts the payment information and transmits it to a payment network for authorization. The payment is then accepted or denied by the payment network and the result returned to Nuvei Gateway. Once payment has been accepted, Nuvei Gateway transmits a digital receipt to the merchant and in some case to the customer. The issuer transfers funds through the payment network to the acquiring bank, which sends the funds either directly to the merchant's bank account or to one of Nuvei's clients' accounts at a major international bank. Nuvei periodically transfers the funds net of fees, charges, and a security holdback to the merchant's bank account. The issuer then bills the customer for payment. Here you can see that Nuvei's native commerce platform incorporates 6 different processes, and it's possible that they could continue expanding this in the future. Now to answer the question of how is revenue generated by Nuvei. And for most of you who have invested in other payments processing companies, you know that they take a fee off of each transaction. There are also value-added services that Nuvei provides to the merchants, things like sending customers receipts or even more detailed views on what's happening in each transaction. On top of all this, Nuvei provides advanced dashboards, business intelligence tools, and other technology solutions, which can be purchased at a monthly fee. Now let's turn over to some of their largest customers. So I've thrown up on the screen here some of Nuvei's largest customers, and if you scroll across each column, to be honest, I don't actually know any of these businesses. None of them are very big here in Canada, so if you guys know anything about their customers, just let me know in the comments down below because I'd be interested. And personally for me, because I don't know any of the businesses that they service, it makes it very difficult for me to put my personal money into the company. But if you have a good understanding of who their customers are and how stable those businesses are, I think this gives you an advantage when you're looking into investing into Nuvei. But for most Canadians out there, you probably won't know many of these businesses. One last thing that you should know before we go into the comparison between Lightspeed and Nuvei is that Nuvei made a large acquisition of a company called SafeCharge. And this happened in 2019 where they bought this company out for $889 million, which is a fairly significant chunk of change as Nuvei is only currently worth $5.8 billion. And essentially what SafeCharge is they're a full service payment platform for business growth. So very similar to what Nuvei does, which is ultimately why they acquired them. But the reason why Nuvei acquired SafeCharge is because they operate in UK. So ultimately Nuvei is expanding into the world through acquisition. They also acquired another company called Smart to Pay Transactions, which this acquisition happened earlier in 2020. And this helped them enter the market in the Netherlands. Now let's compare Shopify, Lightspeed, as well as Nuvei. So the things that we're going to compare Nuvei, Lightspeed, and Shopify on are their founding year, their market cap, their payments processed in the trailing 12 months, the revenue for the past 4 quarters, the revenue growth for the past 2 quarters, only because we have limited history of Nuvei, their gross margin on average for the last 4 quarters, their price to sales ratios, their IPO raise, the number of customers that they have, as well as the type of customers that they service. So first off, we're going to talk about the founding years. Lightspeed was founded in 2005, Nuvei was founded in 2003, and Shopify was founded in 2006. So Shopify was found latest, however, it was the first to IPO and today is still the largest company out of these 3 by a mile. For the market cap of these 3 companies, Lightspeed comes in at the lowest market cap of 4.28 billion Canadian dollars. For Nuvei, they're valued at 5.8 billion Canadian dollars, and for Shopify, they're valued at a whopping $148 billion. So clearly, Shopify is more than 20 times larger than the other 2 companies. For the amount of payments that they process, though, Lightspeed comes in at $23 billion, Nuvei at $35 billion, and Shopify at $82.9 billion. The revenue that they've earned for the past 4 quarters, Lightspeed earned $180.4 million, Nuvei earned $428.5 million, and Shopify earned $2.08 billion. Note that all these figures are in Canadian dollars here. Now turning over to the revenue growth for the past 2 quarters on average. So for Lightspeed, they grew at 60% for the past 2 quarters, Nuvei grew at 68%, and Shopify grew at 72%. And more notably, Shopify actually grew at 97% in the past quarter and 47% in the previous quarter before that. So it seems like Shopify has really kickstarted the growth in the past quarter, and we'll have to see what they do in this next quarter. The gross margins for these companies are as follows. Lightspeed at 60.5%, Nuvei at 83%, and Shopify at 54%. So Nuvei has the best gross margins out of the three here. For the price to sales ratio, Lightspeed is at 23.1, Nuvei is at 13.5, and Shopify is at 71. I got the price to sales ratio by dividing the market cap by the revenue that I mentioned earlier. If we look at the IPO raise and how much each company raised, for Lightspeed, they raised $178 million USD, as well as an additional $397 million USD when they IPO'd on the New York Stock Exchange a couple weeks ago. For Nuvei, they raised a total of $700 million USD, which is the largest out of the group. However, you should note that they raised $625 million USD for the company, and $75 million was actually shareholders selling off their shares on the IPO day. And lastly, for Shopify, they IPO'd in 2015, which was quite a while ago, so they only raised $131 million during that IPO. But going forward, Shopify has done many secondary offerings if you've been following the stock, and it's definitely amassed to more than $1 billion in secondary offerings raised. When we look at the number of customers that each company has, Lightspeed sits at 77,000 customer locations. So these aren't 77,000 individual customers, but if a customer has multiple stores, each store is counted into this customer count. For Nuvei, they state they have 50,000 customers, and for Shopify, they state they have 1 billion merchants. So there's a huge gap between the number of customers of Shopify versus the other two companies here. But I believe that each customer Shopify has is a lower value than each customer that Lightspeed or Nuvei has. Lastly, we'll talk about the type of merchants that each company services. For Lightspeed, it's pretty straightforward, and their core customers are retail and hospitality. They also offer e-commerce services, but these are more targeted towards their retail customers. And both these customers are ones that typically operate in brick-and-mortar stores. For Lightspeed though, they've increased their offering to e-commerce, especially for the brick-and-mortar customers who are in the retail space. The e-commerce offering for the brick-and-mortar stores allows those brick-and-mortar customers to have curbside pickup. For Nuvei, their customer base is quite diverse. And as we spoke about it earlier, they have customers in gambling and sports betting, gaming, online retail, marketplaces, digital goods and services, network marketing, financial services, travel, PayFacs and ISVs, which I have no idea what that is, shopping carts and platforms, developers, and banks. And for Shopify, they have a broad set of customers, which they just classify as small and medium businesses, but these customers are typically retail e-commerce companies. So when we do the comparison between these three companies, we can see that Nuvei is probably the cheapest based on the price to sales ratio, Shopify is the best growth, and Lightspeed tends to come second or last in all these categories. But before you make your decision based on these comparisons, we have one last thing to talk about Nuvei, which is customer reviews. And this is where things get a little dicey with Nuvei. So I went searching on Google to see what customers have to say about these businesses. For Lightspeed and Shopify and even competitors like Square, they tend to have reviews that are 4 to 5 stars, and they have a lot of very happy customers. However, for Nuvei, the story is a little bit different. And the fact that the reviews are mixed, I really had to dig into why people didn't like Nuvei as a company. So this one review I found on a website which claims to be unbiased, their pros and cons are as follows. The pros is that Nuvei supports multi-currency, as well as they have next day funding available, meaning that when merchants receive payments from customers, they can see the funds in their bank account by the next day. Now the cons list though is extensive compared to the pros. So the cons for this company is that they have an early termination fee of $495, which is quite significant for any sort of small and medium business out there. Nuvei uses an extensive number of independent sales agents, which can be a red flag for customers. Typically, when you're a customer, you want support directly from the company. But the fact that they're using independent sales agents, they don't have access to as many resources as someone in the company does. So support can be frustrating at times. The lease for Nuvei's payment processing equipment is fairly expensive compared to the competitors, and it comes with very limited support material. And lastly, there's a monthly fee for advanced reporting, which most other companies don't charge for this. And when I read into the article a bit deeper, Nuvei used to be called Pivotal Payments, and Pivotal Payments actually had a very bad reputation with customers. And for that reason, in 2018, they probably rebranded to Nuvei to get rid of that bad reputation that they had as a brand. You might be wondering how simply changing a name of a company can get rid of its bad reputation. This is because when customers file a complaint, they file it to an organization called the BBB. And after 3 years or so after changing your name, these go away. So this will effectively allow Nuvei to erase away their bad record. When new merchants looking for a payments processing solution go searching online, they won't be able to see these negative reviews. But according to the reviewer, they haven't seen any evidence that Nuvei has changed any of the shady business practices that made Pivotal Payments' brand name so toxic. The company continues to rely on large forces of independent sales agents to sell accounts, a practice that almost always results in complaints from merchants. Nuvei also continues to sign merchants up for a long-term contract that includes an automatic renewal clause and a costly early termination fee. There's also a lot of complaints about hidden or at least undisclosed fees, and this is a problem that stems from the use of independent agents who often deliberately fail to disclose information about fees and contract terms to convince merchants to sign up as quickly as possible. And if you go into Nuvei's website, another thing that the reviewer points out is that there's no information on pricing. So Nuvei is clearly not very upfront about what they charge their customers, versus other merchants like Shopify and Square. Their pricing is fairly clearly laid out on their website. If you want to read a bit more about Nuvei's business practices, as well as understand how a customer feels about them, I've linked this article in the description for you guys to check out if you're going to be considering Nuvei as an investment going forward. As for what I'll be doing with Nuvei, personally at this point, I don't feel comfortable investing in the company because I need to do a bit more research on them. There's a few red flags out there that I need to come to terms with and understand at a deeper level to see if they ultimately will impact the business in the long term. If you guys have any information that puts these red flags to rest, let me know in the comments down below because it will ultimately help us as an investment community to make a decision whether this company is a great company or is just a dud. If you guys enjoyed this review on Nuvei, hit the thumbs up button down below, as well as subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're interested in hearing more about Canadian stock IPOs, and as well as just general tech stocks out there. Keep up the grind and have a great day.